Hello, and welcome to the Biomass Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Anna Simet. And for this edition, we are concluding our International Biomass Conference and Expo panel preview series with one final episode. And joining us today, we have Jill Caskey of Solex Thermal Science. Jill, welcome, and thanks so much for chatting with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I thought, why don't we begin today with having you tell us about Solex Thermal Science and what it is that you do there?
Sure. So Solex has been around for about 30 years now. We've gone through a couple name changes along those years, but basically we're experts in bulk solids heat exchange for the purpose of heating, cooling, or drying applications. So basically any product that can flow by gravity, that's not sticky. It could be a granule or a pellet or I guess like a wood pellet in this case, but we've been cooling and heating them for that many years. And in the summer, we recently acquired a company that specializes in heat pipe heat exchangers. And this is for the purpose of waste heat recovery in energy intensive applications. Myself, I've been with Solex for 13 years now. I started in technical inside sales doing equipment design, and now I'm working in sales as a sales director, and I'm looking after the North American market for a variety of products, including wood pellets. So that's about Solex and myself.
Okay. So you're presenting at the upcoming International Biomass Conference and Expo. The title of your presentation really jumped out at me, and it's Decarbonizing Wood Pellet Production Through Moving Bed Heat Exchange Technology. So everyone is talking about decarbonizing across the entire energy sector and beyond. So why is taking steps to reduce carbon footprints in wood pellet production right now so critical?
Yeah, just, from an environmental point of view, the production of wood pellets is a fairly energy intensive process. And from what I've been having discussions with some of the producers is that a lot of these companies are dealing with like their air permit stacks, and they're at their ceiling limits with, being able to increase production or even build new plants and having the permits for these stacks. It's becoming quite an issue that they're trying to deal with. And, some of these companies also, they've made like a declaration of certain ESG goals and targets that they want to meet by certain deadlines. So all with that. And also, I think there is a goal to try to minimize the release of VOCs in the pellets. It results in higher energy content of the pellets if we can keep that emission present in the pellets. So just from a perspective of ESG and environment, that's mostly the driver there, is to look at ways to significantly reduce emissions and VOCs and to save on energy costs as well.
Mm-hmm. And so in your talk, you're going to explore some indirect cooling strategies that producers are taking. Can you give us some examples? And, per your presentation title, I understand that you plan to focus on moving bed heat exchangers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's our bread and butter technology. So it's basically it's a vertical column system. It's a gravity fed system using indirect plate technology. So essentially the product, and in this case, wood pellets, flows down between vertically stacked stainless steel plates, and then a heat transfer medium, which is usually cooling water, will flow countercurrent to the product flow. So it's basically cooling indirectly by conduction. So it's a more effective heat transfer medium than using air. Most pellet producers use air pellet coolers to get that cooling target down to a suitable temperature. So in this case, we're using water, and it's 24 times more efficient than using air to do the cooling. So where we have over our 30 years of experience has mostly been in applications such as fertilizers and chemicals, plastics. We deal with oil seeds and other bioproducts such as wood chips and even sludge pellets from municipal waste. So a lot of different ways that this technology can be used, but we've found a good niche with the wood pellet market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you plan to conclude your presentation with real-world examples of how indirect cooling technology is helping some plants decarbonize right now. Can you tell us a little about one of those examples, without giving away too much?
Sure. This is, I guess, for a fertilizer installation, but we hired Jacobs to do a study to compare air cooling system. In this case, it was a fluidized bed, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. A fluidized bed versus our type of moving bed heat exchanger. So from an energy consumption point of view, the air-cooled technology was consuming about 4 to 5 kilowatt hour per ton of energy versus something that's water-cooled like a moving bed heat exchanger. It was only consuming about 0.4 kilowatt hour per ton. So significant energy savings. And also there's like no moving parts to that design. So it's also going to save headaches from a maintenance and OpEx point of view as well. And we looked at also emissions reduction because the product actually is flowing very gently between the plates. So we're not creating any more dust or odors. They're eliminated because air is not being used in the cooling process. And we found that emissions reductions is approximately 8 times less than using a system that uses air to cool.
Really interesting. So what underlining message do you hope your audience members to walk away with?
This is why I was excited to speak, because I don't think a lot of people know about moving bed heat exchanger as an alternate cooling solution for wood pellets, specifically for this conference. So that's my big takeaway is there are other options that you can look at that, achieve the same goal. You'll still get the same cooling target. You'll have the same product quality, but in the same time, you can really reduce those emissions and save on energy costs. So my highlight is just to show that there's a different way to do it, a different way to cool the wood pellets.
Great answer. All right, Jill. Well, I think we'll wrap up with that. I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and telling our listeners a little bit about what to expect. I sure look forward to your presentation at the conference, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, Anna.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, learn more about the International Biomass Conference and Expo being held March 4th through 6th in Richmond, Virginia at biomassconference.com. Producers get in free, and I sure hope to see you there. Thanks for tuning into this podcast. Until next time.